We had an interesting conversation today amongst Austin and myself about one of the things that we've been realizing. The more successful people we surround ourselves with, the more that our network grows, the more that we find ourselves in rooms where there is money, per se. We realize it's been there all along. And not only that, everybody seems to have money. Everybody seems to have success. Everybody seems to have a level of knowledge, connection, and wisdom that we were not even aware existed. Austin, what do you think about this? Because I know you paint the picture much better than I do.
So I think everyone has encountered this before. Now, whether it's, a bike that you got when you were a kid, and when you got the bike, you started to see the bike more. Or when you got a certain pair of shoes, you started to see people wearing those same types of shoes more. Or, as we all know, it's like, okay, I have insert your car here. You buy the car, you get the car, then you start to see everyone driving that same exact car as you. Now, initially one might think, okay, everybody is just copying my shit here. They're copying my wave. They're over here buying the car that I'm buying. They're buying the bicycle that I have. They're buying the shoes that I have. And they all just started doing it once I did it, because the world revolves around me and I'm just, the only person here. It's not how it works. How it works is, it's not that those things weren't there before. It's not that bicycle, it's not that car or those shoes weren't there before. It's just the fact that you didn't care about them. It wasn't on your mind to think, let me look out for this, right? Because, like Jose said, now that we're in this entrepreneurial space and we're working towards something, we have a business that is generating money, and we're trying to get loans from this bank and this stuff, and yada, 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 all this type of stuff, right? We're starting to encounter more people that are doing the same thing. We're starting to encounter more people that have done that thing, that have invested money in certain areas, that have went about getting SBA loans, that have gotten, millions of dollars in revenue before, and XYZ. And again, it's not because these things weren't there before. It's because we're starting to pay attention to them. It's something that in our mind is now attainable. And this is not just something that's randomly called, or randomly associated with, the thing that just happens all the time because now I'm seeing it. No, it's an actual phenomenon. And it's called, excuse my language here because I might fuck this up, the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, right? So the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, also called the frequency of illusion, is a cognitive bias that affects how we think and process information. It's a phenomenon where something you recently learned seems to appear everywhere, making it feel like it's more common than it actually is. And once again, now knowing that this is how shit works, I would say that this is actually a very large benefit, because you want to realize that once I train my mind or program my mind to look out for these things, or once you realize, hey, once I chase these things, I'll start to see more of them or see more opportunities that way, the possibilities that you can do and have are endless.
It's interesting, and thank you for sharing the actual phenomenon, because that completely blanked my mind. When I think about that phenomenon, when I hear your explanation of it, it's almost like we are in control of shaping our perception of our reality and our surroundings.
Exactly.
And there's that age-old adage that says, if you're looking for it, you'll find it. And when we begin to see things continuously, when we begin to start wanting certain things to happen, and we start putting all of our mental power towards it, we begin to see it. It could be bias, but it could also be something that we are ourselves creating. As Napoleon Hill says, think and grow rich. It's the same thing. You can curate your reality. If you want to be delusional, you can make that delusion into reality within reason. And we always talk about how you actually have to be delusional to get a certain reality that you want. You have to think things that others haven't thought of before. Ooh, I don't know if I can recall the quote. I don't know who it was from. Let me see. Let's see how good Jose's brain is today. It was... Nope. Essentially, genius is good at what's already existing. What's higher than genius? Prodigy is somebody who creates something new. Whatever, protege, apologies. It was something around those lines to say that there's a way to be good at conventional things, and that's considered genius. But the next step is completely devising a whole new method by which to do things.
Correct.
And when I think about the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, I think of the possibility that we all hold to not just shape our reality, but to change our perception of our reality in order to affect our reality. And that could be one day you just realize that, hey, I'm not poor. Because poor is a mentality. You can be broke, but you're only poor when you think you are. Because some of the happiest men are the men who have something simple. Men, women, children, dogs. That dog that's been living on the street and then gets a treat is the happiest dog in the world. He's not thinking about wealth. He's not thinking that he's broke. He's just happy. He's no longer poor. He's rich. He has this treat. In his mind, that's all he wanted in life. And so if you focus on that one thing that you truly want to happen, you'll start seeing, whether it's by bias or whether it's by something separate from a higher power, you will start seeing patterns and behaviors and methods that you can get there. And you'll start living an entirely different life because your perception is your perception of reality, but your experience of life is yours and yours alone.
Right. And people often mention, like, hey, if you want to change the world, it starts within. And I don't think a lot of people realize how important that is and the magnitude of that statement. Because we've talked about neural pathways and all that shit before, right? But realizing that if you say that I'm going to start doing this, or my new favorite color is this, or I'm going to be more confident, and repeating that over and over again, what you tell yourself in your mind, when it's just you and you, what you tell yourself shapes your reality in the physical. So it starts off as a thought. It starts off as an inclination to do something. It starts off as a conversation that you might have with yourself, with your inner dialogue, right? And then you realize that, what the fuck? I've been thinking this for an extended period of time. I've been working towards this for an extended period of time. I've adopted this new mindset or mentality on life, and now I see it all the time. You have to understand that didn't just start because everybody outside of you and the world that you live in just started doing that randomly. It's become more evident and prevalent because you made it that way. And I don't want you to have like a big man character syndrome, but I do want you to understand that you have a lot more power over your life and where you end up than what you think. Because yes, there are certain people that have received a better hand in life. They've started with better cards than you, right? There might be more or less interferences to get them from point A to point B, as opposed to you have a lot of interferences between point A and point B. You might not have started with a bunch of money. You might not have started with a bunch of people around you that were, smart enough to realize that you have to do certain things a certain way to get to where you want to get to. You may not have that. But if you really want something and you're willing to say, hey, look, I'm going to do this regardless, and put in the work, the time that it may take you to get what you're looking for may be longer than someone else's. However, it's your race, not theirs. You know, it's your pathway, it's your life, not theirs. You can still accomplish the same thing. You can still get this particular or be in this particular building that we're in right now. Your pathway there may not be the same, but if you make the mental decision that you're going to do that no matter what, you're going to be able to do it. You just have to be able to put in the work to do it. And that's something that has helped us tremendously. And when we were younger, we never said, yeah, living in this apartment, that's too crazy.
We're not going to do it.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to do that shit. It was something that we always thought of when we drove past and we said, hey, we're going to live there one day. And now we're sitting here at 25 talking to you from the fucking place that we said that we were going to live. And it all started because we believed it could happen. And we thought that we can really make this shit work. And we just didn't know how at the time, but we figured it the fuck out. And once we said, hey, we're going to start doing that, we started to see little pieces that put together made the puzzle, the bigger puzzle, which was getting this apartment. We started seeing little ways that we could be able to finance this, little ways in as to, okay, you're living here. How can we make this work? How can we move out at a specific time? How can we move out and still pay the old rent while also paying the rent for the month that we have to put down in order to live here? How are we going to move? How are we going to do all those things? Once you define in your mind that you can do something, you start to see those little things that you didn't see before. Again, going back to the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon. So
this could be a separate podcast, but I'm going to still touch on this a little bit because this is recent for me. Mm-hmm. When I went to Nicaragua to handle some business for one of our businesses, our cigar business, I started noticing things that I never saw before. This was the first time, mind you, that I had gone home to see my family, and that I was an entrepreneur. It was the first time. I started learning and realizing how the entrepreneurial community in Nicaragua operates. And I'll give you a little bit of background. In Nicaragua, the majority of people are entrepreneurs because making a living wage working a standard 9-to-5 is very difficult to live in the current economy. And so you have all kinds of businessmen and women, even children. Children will be selling peanuts and pastries on the side of the street to make ends meet, to help their parents make ends meet, or if they just want to have some spending money. But basically, some of the richest people are the people who sell food, cheese, or have restaurants, or import and export products. So as I got to spend more time around these businessmen and businesswomen, I started realizing how smart and how well networked, connected, and how perspicacious and indefatigable these particular individuals were. I never saw that before. But since I came into the country being a businessman on business, I started seeing things that I had never seen before. And I will tell you, the amount of things that I learned, the manner by which to communicate, how to conduct yourself, how to negotiate certain holdings, how to just navigate certain situations. The abilities that I learned and the things that I saw have left a lasting impact. Coming back after having seen and learned these things, I'm even seeing these characteristics and traits in businessmen and businesswomen in America. And the reason I say this is you don't know what you're going to see and where you're going to see it. There's a saying from Heraclitus that says, a man cannot pass through the same river twice. And this is because he is not the same man, nor is the river the same. And what that means is very simple. You are always changing, and so are your surroundings. And if you don't challenge yourself, if you don't expose yourself to new surroundings, if you're not actively looking for new things, you're going to be stagnant. And we all know that being stagnant in a moving world means that you're actually regressing, not progressing.
And this made me think of something pretty funny that we used to joke about. Like, before, we used to think, okay, if you want to get rich, you have to have a whole bunch of real estate. You're going to have to fucking come up with the next technological advancement that turns humans into fucking cyborgs or some shit. Or, you know, just some crazy thing like that, right? But the more we talk to people, the more we start to realize there's billions and trillions of ways to make money. Mm-hmm. Who the fuck knows? Like, for instance, ill-found. If you thought, hey, I have to make a fucking phone in order to get rich. No, you can make a product like this. Sleek, looks good, serves its purpose. It might look relatively simple to you, but then you realize how much money this company generates and will continue to generate off of something like this that just accomplishes a need from someone. So there you go. And the more people we've met, we found these businesses that are like, I own a plastic company. I own a waste disposal company. I own a aglet company or some shit like that, right?
Literally aglet.
So
bro.
Something that you would never really think about, but it's very profitable because people need the shit. And that is also very important to me because now we realize that we don't have to be conventional the way that we do things. We can figure out what's our niche and what do we want to attack and build something around that. And again, once you figure out what your niche is, once you figure out what you want to do and you make it a daily thing that you're working towards, the signs and the network that you need to build, the stars that you need to align will begin to align as long as you're putting in the work. And it's not because those things never existed before. No, they were always there, right in front of your fucking face most times. Some people that we come across that we thought were just regular people turn out to be fucking millionaires that you would have never known. They were always there, but we never sought them out. We never sought out knowing who owned the food stand, knowing who owned the fucking little cafe down the street and how much money they're actually generating, because we thought that they just had their little storefront, but we realized that they were making wholesales to other locations for hotels and other businesses like that. We didn't realize that until we looked, until we asked, until we cared. So once you start to care, once you start to look, once you start to research, and once you start to work, then the stars will align and you'll start to see the things that you didn't see before. And once you see those things, you know that they exist. And once you know that they exist, you know that it can be done for you as well.
What was it was one of the podcast topics. Ooh, hang on.
Was it recent?
Yeah. I was going to be cheeky here, but the cheekiness didn't happen. You don't belong here. You won't understand. It never ends. Oh, do you know who you're talking to? Some of the most successful people and most successful businesses are the ones that you don't hear about. They go unbeknownst. Do you have any idea how much money waste disposal businesses make? You don't hear about the concrete businesses. You don't hear about the landscaping businesses. They all make gobs of money because they're absolutely necessary. Let's talk about the glass industry. Think about how much money window companies make, especially in cities like Houston, Dallas, New York, whatever city that has large buildings or is expanding. Mm-hmm. And you genuinely and generally do not know who owns these companies. Who owns Veuve Clicquot? Well, don't they also own luxury brands? That's not common knowledge.
And LVMH owns, they're the parent company of all that. You don't know who owns LVMH, but you do know that they own Veuve. They own Louis Vuitton. They own
Louis. Baton.
Yeah, I didn't want to just cut it off there. But they own these luxury brands. You never would have known them, but they're, I believe, maybe like the second richest conglomerate, if not second or third richest conglomerate on the planet.
And you don't know their names. You can find them.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But you don't know their names. It's not like you just say, oh, it's Elon. Oh, it's
Right.
it's Jeff Bezos. So it's Mark Zuckerberg. No, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so you really don't know who you're talking to. And not everybody presents themselves. And also not everybody talks about it, because a lot of us don't want people in our business, because
Exactly.
our business is our business and it's none of your business.
Right.
Unless we want it to be.
And also, since we've become watch, I don't want to say aficionados, but we like watches,
Give me the look.
right?
Give me the look. Come on. We got to do the watch
See,
dance.
now I'm not doing the damn watch dance on this damn podcast. Whenever we get our next watch, the watch, you know what we're talking about.
So next week.
There you go.
3
Then
weeks.
I'll do the watch dance. But going to tell you even more about this particular phenomenon, we didn't initially start to pay attention to people's watches and what they were wearing when we were younger. Maybe, you didn't know what the fuck it was. You didn't really care. You didn't even think of it as something that was important. But now that we're into watches, now that we like watches more, now that we understand the certain watch brands, we realize, oh shit, was he wearing a Grand Seiko? Oh shit, was he wearing a fucking Rolex Daytona? Oh shit, was he wearing a Vacheron Constantine? Was he wearing a Patek Philippe? Was he wearing a IWC? Was he wearing a Richard Mille? Wow, I didn't know that. Who would have thought? Was he wearing a Cartier tank? Now you see these little things. And like Jose said, they might just have regular clothes on. They may not be in a full suit, but they have these little things here that you may not know that person is someone who can afford a $100,000 watch. But now that it's on your mind and you're thinking about it, and you start to pay attention to these things, you start to notice them more. And again, they've always been there. You just started to notice them now. Same thing with success. Success, money, power, influence, it's all around you. You just didn't really care about it that much to focus on it and figure out how the fuck do you get it for yourself. Once you figure that out, the blocks will start to fall in place.
And sometimes it's just an ability that you have to unlock with time.
Mm-hmm.
You're not on that level yet. You don't have that level of Sharingan. You haven't unlocked that next level of Mangekyo.
There you go.
Hey, the M Club Podcast.
Signing out.
The AM Club Podcast.